The Liberation of Sundrian City by Andrew Lewis. Chapter 18. The Past Recedes. Linus could see it. During the training session, he could see it now. Humans were all the same to them. He watched Mott and saw that he reacted to Deimos in the exact way he did to anyone else. Indifference. That was the best word Linus could think for it. All elephants were indifferent to humans to some extent, but Mott was just unwavering. He was the role model to the other elephants. The alpha male. And he led by example, the perfect harmony between man and beast. You respect our nature and we will yours. Missy was of course the polar opposite, and Linus tried to remember a time he'd seen the two of them socializing with each other, but couldn't. That made sense to him now. It all made sense. He felt in that moment as if he understood the creatures better than Deimos did, and that felt good. He knew something Deimos didn't. Whenever he could spare a glance, he watched him atop Mott, so confident and arrogant. "That's not your elephant, Deimos," he said to himself, with a grin. The session wasn't much of a success in terms of handling Missy. In fact, it had been disastrous. Nothing had gone right, and Linus exercised nothing with any semblance to control over him. But he didn't mind, he felt good. The ridicule from the other riders shot through him like an arrow through a ghost. He barely heard it. The others must have thought he'd gone crazy, laughing along with them. Later, Linus lay on his bed, his hands splayed under the crown of his head, staring up at the small window where several stars were visible in the night beyond. They say you can't count the stars, but Linus found that he could when the sky was restricted to his window. Slowly he drifted away to sleep with thoughts of his day swirling about his mind. He woke to a knocking on his door. It wasn't morning though, he was sure. He hadn't even eaten dinner yet. Someone was there for him. "Who is that?" "I have a message for you." The voice wasn't a familiar one, but there was importance in it, enough to strike intrigue in Linus. It was a uniformed guard who stood at the door. Linus could tell by his professional demeanour that he was on duty. "I have a message from Princess Robin for the murderer," he announced. He then stood expectantly, watching the surprise on Linus's face. "Please confirm, sir." "Oh, right, yes, that's me, I am the murderer." "Thank you." The guard reached into a small envelope and withdrew a tiny piece of paper and read it aloud. "Glasshouse," he said. He then proceeded to return the note to the envelope. "That's it?" "Would you like me to check it again?" he politely offered, although Linus could see the malice deep under the mask of professionalism. No, thank you." The same familiar spell fell on Linus the moment he entered the glasshouse. The smells, they played with his mind, alive and mischievous. They made it hard to think straight. The princess was there, waiting, and when she looked up, he saw the shine of 2 blue diamonds. She greeted him by merely saying, "So, you are a murderer." Here we go again, Linus thought. He regretted making the effort to meet. A slow, frustrated sigh left him, more of a grunt, really. "If you're going to keep calling me that, He paused, having caught himself speaking in pure frustration to a girl who was royalty nonetheless. As he choked on his words, Princess Robin interrupted. "Oh, lighten up, Linus. I was just having a joke." "That's a joke?" There was confusion in his voice, and his frustration threatened to boil into anger and spread throughout his body. He couldn't follow the princess. She seemed to constantly throw him off guard, and it was beginning to get to him. And the smells, oh, the smells, how they wiggled their way into his mind. But one small gesture swiftly erased all of this ill feeling. One small step in his direction, coupled with a smile. Yes, a joke. Her diamond eyes. He tried to fight it, but it crept out. A laugh. A smirk he couldn't suppress. A self-betrayal. He wasn't smiling because of the joke, that much he knew. He tried to rearrange his face back into a serious one. Princess Robin, you are... I don't know. To what do I owe this bother? Oh, have I bothered you? She laughed. You seek to bother me. I'm not such a fool. Although standing there he couldn't help but feel like one. The princess was in a playful mood. Linus could see that, but he was not. And this manifested as what can only be described as a clashing of moods. Well, you've succeeded. I am bothered. I came here for you. Now, if you'll be so kind, could you tell me the meaning of this rendezvous, if there even is one? She held him in suspense a moment, considering his face with a curiosity Linus couldn't quite discern. I thought about what you said, and I thought about... She hesitated, a flush of fear falling over her face as if she was about to take a leap of faith. I thought maybe we could be friends. The request was delivered quickly in a single breath. It lingered a moment, somewhere in the dense air between them. A mouse made its way across a windowsill. Another joke? He asked, delicately. Maybe, she replied with a wicked smile, unplaceable. Linus shook his head in disbelief. He was pleased in a way. After all, this was what he wanted. But at the same time he was confused. There were several long moments of careful consideration, moments not dissimilar in essence to those in which a bird edges tentatively closer to feed from one's hand, before he answered. All right, he said. I'd like that. And then nothing happened for a moment. The atmosphere, the mismatching of moods, remained. But you can't call me a murderer anymore, okay? He felt childish as he made the request, and it came across that way. Oh, come on now, Linus. Not all murderers are bad. Look at Deimos, he's killed dozens of people, he's okay. Deimos? Commander Ezekiel Deimos is okay. Are you mad? The man is completely barbarous, he is... Oh, have I hit a nerve? She interrupted, looking rather pleased at having discovered a new way to taunt Linus. He's only doing his job, a very important job too. He dedicates his life to the safety of the city folk, an honourable mission in my opinion. It must be a joke, Linus reasoned. She continued. Honour lies in intention, not action. Remember that, Linus. If Deimos has a fault, it's blind loyalty, misplaced loyalty. Misplaced? He's loyal to the palace, to the emperor, your father. Are you not? What if I told you that I wasn't? What if I told you that I place my trust only in my own judgment? There is less truth in these walls than you realise, Linus. My father is a greedy man and acts mostly in his own interests. How can you say that? Your father's priority is to protect the citizens of the city. Yes, and he puts that responsibility squarely on Deimos, doesn't he? Deimos does more to protect us than my father ever has. She was still light-hearted, but Linus was so far from that now. This girl was trouble, an antagonist. This relationship would be bad for his mental health, he thought. Linus, our city was founded in cowardice and greed, she continued, and something resembling seriousness had become present in her voice, as if she wanted to make her point now. Our forefathers fled to the mountains of Greater Altair to hide from the Great War. He abandoned our allies. We abandoned our own army, and we went into hiding to protect ourselves. We are cowards. Barley Frigg, the first emperor of this city, the biggest coward of them all, the leader of the cowards. For Linus, this was the first time he'd ever heard of the great Barley Frigg being referred to as anything but a hero. He saved us, Princess. He imprisoned us, Linus. The war imprisoned us. It did no such thing. We put ourselves here, and here we cower to this day. We've grown accustomed to it. It's become part of our character as a city, to cower, to hide. We don't even feel ashamed of it anymore. We are somehow a proud city, huh? As far as we know, Princess, we are the last safe human city. The princess fronted to him, stared him deep in the eyes. I don't believe that, she said firmly. A large boulder sank through Linus. No one wanted to believe the simple truth, that they were more or less alone, but it was a truth they had all grown into. The truth was the basis of their city, of their existence. They knew it, sure enough. They were alone. But all that said, it could be proclaimed fairly that most Sundrian City residents harboured a secret hope that one day Ramiel Colwich would return from an expedition with the news of a faraway human city. One that wasn't riddled with fairies and harpies or the spirits of the unloved, where the people weren't poisoned in the mind by evil. This was a secret hope, a hope that, as Remy's report grew more and more dire with every expedition, dwindled into a near non-existence, and a hope that no one of the current, last or previous generations had ever spoken of. No one until now. So what gave Princess Robin the mind to speak this way? The audacity to hold such a belief. She knew something that he didn't, Linus decided. A secret. She knew something and he wanted to know it too. He wanted to know right then and there, to probe through her thoughts and understand. But alas, he suspected the friendship was too young to be asking for her secrets. And besides, he could see that her brief lapse into seriousness was at an end, for she was now flicking the petals of a flower and wiggling her body in imitation of it, as if she and the plant were friends and this was a game they often played. Well, that is a belief I am envious of, he cried. She smiled. It was fleeting, though, and she did not respond. You seem to be in a particularly good mood today, Princess, may I ask? Ah, you noticed, she snapped, suddenly in a new level of spiritedness, suddenly brimming with something. That's because I have a present for you. It was as if she had been waiting to burst this out, waiting for the right cue. I'm not sure that I want, he faltered, stopping mid-sentence, having had second thoughts. What kind of present? Oh, trust me, Linus, this is something you want. She looked positively elated. She approached, engaging him completely. He felt his palms grow sweaty, and he struggled to resist a new spell of dizziness. The smells. When she spoke, Linus could sense the excitement suppressed in her voice. I heard about your friend, Jeremy. I'm sorry to hear that he died so needlessly. And I heard about his father and the guard responsible for both of their deaths. How did you... Never mind that, I just heard. But Linus, listen. They were teetering on the verge of a revelation they both knew. They both knew her next words would carry significant weight, but just exactly how significant, neither of them knew. Linus, the guard, churned, he's still alive. He's to be executed this coming rest day. Linus felt a jolt of recognition. Of course, the trial had stopped when Linus defeated Crusini. The executions had never happened. Why hadn't he thought of this? He couldn't speak. Thoughts were flooding his mind. He had a vision, a memory of the man chained to the dungeon wall, waiting patiently for his death, feeling no remorse over having murdered Linus's young friend Jeremy Botsfield. He remembered the anguish of Wesley Botsfield, and how he had offered such kind words to Linus only moments before his own violent death. He imagined stamping hard upon the murdering guard's head and relishing in the applause. He wanted to be the writer. There's more good news, she continued. I asked my father if you could join us on the grandstand to watch, and he agreed. He was actually quite fond of the idea. Something twitched in Linus's heart. He remembered his last conversation with the princess, how he was the murderer. He couldn't do it. He couldn't be the one. It would have to be enough just to watch from afar. He found himself hoping that the writer would be Deimos, a betrayal of a thought that he dismissed immediately. Linus, she requested his attention, and again when he met her eyes, he could sense more serious words to come. Would you like to be the one? She was quite serious indeed. If it were possible, Linus, would you like to kill him? Oh, how he would. That was all that he wanted. In that moment he desired nothing more. He imagined the moment. He imagined how he wouldn't hesitate. The stomp, the crushing of a skull, the riot of applause, all before the man even had a chance to be sorry or arrogant or brave. Stomp and he's gone. And he wanted it with all his heart. But it could not be. He knew that, for he suspected that the princess was testing him, testing their friendship, and that friendship was not something on which he was prepared to gamble. I won't lie, I would indeed like to kill him. He saw something diminish in the princess. He saw disappointment manifesting. But, he continued, I do not wish to be the murderer any longer, my princess. I would like to accept your offer of a seat on the grandstand, and you can count on me to be there. Now, it was the disappointment that diminished, replaced by relief. Then something happened, something Linus was not prepared for in the slightest. Princess Robin pounced, without a moment's notice, and flung her arms around Linus. Nothing was said for a moment. Linus had become rigid, and it seemed that the princess had frozen too, both of them horrified to find themselves locked in an embrace. He felt his face heat up into a burning red blush, and his armpits began to itch and sweat. When they came apart, there was a discernible averting of their eyes, a mutual sense of embarrassment. Linus found himself stuck for words completely, incapable of deciding on a single thing worth saying. He stared intently at a leaf, as if it were something much more interesting than a leaf, or perhaps as if he had spotted an ugly insect climbing up it. He hadn't, of course, seen anything at all, but he stared nonetheless, terrified to meet the princess's gaze. This moment stretched agonizingly on, and he became more and more self-conscious by the second. A young man's hormones know no mercy, and it was with enormous relief that the silence was broken. I must be going. Me too, he spat, all too quickly, turning on his heel to flee as he spoke. In his haste to leave, he nearly forgot to bid the princess good night, calling back over his shoulder as he made his exit. In the few short minutes of walking back through the palace corridors, he thought of a million things he should have said to Princess Robin in that uneasy moment of silence.